So I got to be honest, I never thought I'd make a video like this about this topic. But just a quick backdrop. I was one of his first million subscribers actually back around 800,000, I think. And after I graduated high school, I just kind of lost interest. Just kind of started moving into other stuff, more like history podcasts and stuff, as opposed to like the gaming stuff. And I kind of just lost interest and stopped following him till the Wall Street Journal thing last year. And then more recently, I've been following his stuff now that it looks like, now that the political circles and his circle has merged together temporarily, has overlapped a bit. It's interesting to see that, and I just kind of want to go through this very interesting phenomenon as to how someone like him, of all people, is mired in, has been sucked into this whole, like, having hit pieces written about him, being accused of being a Nazi, something like that. Because if you've never watched his videos, I would recommend, honestly, just go right now, go to his channel, and just click, like, one of the last 4 or 5 videos at random. They're, like, 10 minutes long, and, I don't loyally watch him anymore, so I can't say that all his videos are the same, but of the last, like, 10 videos I've seen over the past, like, 5-6 months, they all seem to have a pretty similar format. So I think once you've seen one of them, you get the general gist of what he does. And I would bet money that you probably won't come across, or you probably won't end the video thinking he's a Nazi, and yet the accusation happens. So I want to go through this because this is a very interesting thing to see. Like, why is this happening to him of all people? Because you can understand, like, of course, someone like a Tucker Carlson, people would go after. Someone like an Alex Jones, they would go after. But like some guy that started out with playing games on the internet and now just like comedies that like literally reviews memes online. Ironically, it's very interesting to see how him of all people could get sucked in. So why is PewDiePie so controversial? We'll get into that. All right. For one, the interesting thing is he is apolitical. Like, he does not talk politics at all, except when people bring it in. Like, the only time he's ever talked anything even remotely political was he once reviewed Jordan Peterson's book. And then pretty much other than that, it's just responding to hit pieces when people go after him for hit pieces. And even then, he's not even talking politics. He's just talking about the media. But you can tell, like, I don't know what his political perspective is, and I don't think it's very clear. Like, again, I'm not a loyal viewer, but as far as I can tell, I've never seen him say anything, or I've never heard anyone say anything about what he actually considers himself. If he's labeled himself a left-winger, right-winger, or Democrat, Republican. I mean, he lives in the UK, and he's from Sweden, so that's those political party terms might not apply to him. So I guess I've never heard him say conservative or labor or UKIP, possibly. But yeah, he hasn't said anything about his political views, which is interesting because why are people going after him? And he's not a culture warrior. He's not one of these people that do politics for a living. He's not one of these people where their goal is to convince people of certain political beliefs and something like that. Like, this is not what he does at all, which I find very interesting, and I think has to do with what makes him so significant as to why people are going after him so hard. Because there's really two messages here that really two conclusions we can make from the fact that people are attacking him despite him being completely apolitical. And one, that's the fact that he is apolitical means that he has tapped into an audience that doesn't care about politics. He's tapped into an audience that, if someone's interested in politics, they'll follow political channels. And generally, they'll follow political channels they agree with. Whereas PewDiePie is someone people follow him for comedy. Like, 77 million people, or at least of those 77 million, the channels that are still active, because I think I'm subscribed to him across 3 channels. 2 of those I don't use anymore. But I think that's interesting that he taps into an audience that is entirely based off of comedy. So you're looking at all kinds of different political spectrums. You're looking at a lot of young people as well, middle schoolers, high schoolers. At least that's my assumption, that a lot of his viewers are mostly middle schoolers and high schoolers. And these are people that really haven't formed their political views of the world, but they're younger, so I think for the most part they're starting to develop that idea of whether they're going down the route of distrusting authority from any outlet, or if they're going to take that, like, if a teacher says it, or if the media says it, or if a politician says it, it must be true, those kind of things. They're deciding that route then. And what happens is, whenever someone goes after PewDiePie, which I think they're at the point of no return now, where pretty much any article written about him is just damage control. I don't think anyone can possibly resurrect that. But he's at a point where he's tapped into this audience of young people that don't know much about the media or politics or anything, which is fine. But when he gets attacked by the media, he has a lot of power because he's pretty much immune. Because let's say, like, any kind of scandal that comes out, he's got the worst kind of scandals coming. They're pretty much like the only thing worse that could happen at this as a scandal or accusation against him is if he got Me Too'd, if someone came out with like a accused him of sexual assault or something. Because there's not much. The only thing really worse than being accused of being a Nazi. But I think he wields a lot of power and people are quite aware of that he wields a lot of power because you're going to be loyal to someone like that. Like, his viewers are loyal to him, or at least a lot of them are, and they know who he is. They know what kind of a person he is. So when the media comes and attacks him and says he's a Nazi, they've already made their conclusion before even reading the article. Like, they're already saying, okay, this guy is not a Nazi. And they know that anyone that attacks him, anyone that attacks someone they like, is not to be trusted, which is why when you look at, there was one, I believe, like a survey or a poll, I'll see if I can find it later, I do remember someone referenced a poll that apparently when they polled like high schoolers and younger kids, like, what do you think of different media outlets? Pretty much the one that had the least amount of trust among young people was the Wall Street Journal. After what they did with PewDiePie, after they kind of slandered him and got YouTube to cut his contract with some kind of show. But yeah, so the fact that he's apolitical, I think, means he taps into a certain audience that is normally not exposed to this stuff, and that's why he's so valuable, I guess, that's why he has a lot of this, like, he has a lot of influence. But obviously, I already kind of covered this a little bit. He is popular, like, he is very popular. He's number one on YouTube, and because the fact that he's one person, the fact that he's been around for so long means that he has a lot of loyal supporters. The fact that he makes videos that aren't like not heavily edited, but videos that seem rather personal, that people can connect with, I think lends to the fact that like, he has a lot of loyal supporters, a lot of people that will willingly back him. You've seen with this, if you haven't seen, I'll clear it up quick, with the whole T-Series versus PewDiePie thing that's been going on over the past month or so. T-Series, this company, which, I mean, is a big, like, faceless corporation that puts out all kinds, like, it's an Indian company that puts out all kinds of videos, and it's not one guy, like, it's a big company, and they're rapidly approaching beating him as number one. So there's been this whole thing of, like, subscribe to PewDiePie. It's kind of a joke. Like, it's just a joke. Like, keep him number one. And all of his supporters have been doing that to the point where they've actually, one supporter, I believe, hacked over 50,000 printers and printed out subscribe to PewDiePie. This happened a second time. I don't know how many printers they hit the second time, but that happened. One like, I guess, blogger, YouTuber bought like all the billboards in his town to show subscribe to PewDiePie. Someone bought an actual Times Square advertisement for a certain period to say subscribe to PewDiePie on it, like, in Times Square. I'm not talking like a little window in Times Square. I'm talking like the big one. You see, the big one on the big building right in the middle of Times Square, one that says subscribe to PewDiePie. So people are, like, doing all kinds of stuff with this. It is pretty hilarious, but it's all it all shows that people like him. Like, he has a loyal fan base that's actually putting money and time and effort into actually getting people to subscribe to him to keep him number one for that reason. And the fact that he is so unusually popular means that, like, he can't just be taken down. Like, if he had 1,000 subscribers, he could disappear tomorrow, and you might get a little bit of outrage, but overall no one would care. But the fact that he is number one at the moment, I think, means that, like, YouTube, obviously, YouTube doesn't like him. YouTube, the company itself, does not like him as number one. And if you need any proof of that, you can look at their YouTube Rewind that they do every year, where they take all the biggest content creators of the year and all the biggest content creators of that time period, and they make some big, like, major music video out of it. It's supposed to be a big thing. And the last two, PewDiePie was not in, and not because he declined, but because they kind of never asked him. So I think that's glaring evidence right there that number one on YouTube, and they didn't even ask him, as evidence that, hey, like, YouTube's not really a fan of him. So YouTube would probably get rid of him if they had the chance, like restrict his channel or something. They would, I think, they would rather not have him number one. They would rather have someone else number one. But the fact that he is number one means I don't think they can do anything without lots of people getting mad. Because remember that he's, I guess, still part of, like, he was part of the rise of, like, the gaming YouTubers too. And gaming, as far as I'm aware, is still like a really big thing on YouTube, and he was one of the first. So the fact that he has a lot of these connections, and like a lot of the other big gaming YouTubers are still friends with him and think of him as a really good guy and have come to his defense in the past, if anything happened to him, which, I mean, you've seen with these hit pieces, he not only has the support of his own channel, but loads of other channels are also coming to his defense as well. So I think he's got so much power there that if he were to be taken down, sure, there'd be controversy, but not like others. Not like in the other sense, where there's controversy that people try to keep up and keep in the news, and then after a week or two it dies, and that's kind of it. Whereas him, like, something big would happen. I'm just going to say, if there's anyone that's immune to censorship, it would be him. But somewhat apologetic. I find this interesting because, you know, when it comes to certain radicals, like especially on the far left, it's come to the point where pretty much everyone says, do not apologize. Like, add-on, never back down, never apologize. Because we can see what happens. If you apologize, they'll just ask for more. Like, if you apologize, that means they see that as you're in their control. You have acknowledged that you are wrong, they're in the right, and they're going to exploit that however they can. Doesn't apply to everyone, but it seems that the most vocal authoritarians seem to be doing that they will drag you through the dirt as best they can as soon as you apologize. So for the most part, like, that's why people like Milo were so popular, because they never apologize. They were like, screw you. Like, as soon as they say apologize, they'd just be like, no, screw you. Like, I'm not gonna even remotely apologize at all. And I think that turns some people away as well. Like, people appeal to a lot of people because not being apologetic. I mean, you can see, like, you can see the whole Trump campaign as evidence of not apologizing works. But it does alienate quite a few people, because when they see you're not even willing to compromise or apologize, like, that turns off a lot of people. And I think the fact that PewDiePie appears to be somewhat apologetic, like, in fact, his most recent My Response video was called My Response Season 2 Episode 1 as a joke to how many response and apology videos he's done in the past. Which I don't know how many there are, but I know there's like 3 or 4 at least, as far as I can tell from all the related videos that came up when clicking on that one. But I think the fact that he is somewhat apologetic means that you're willing to understand that he's a nice dude. Like, he's willing to admit when he's done wrong. Like when they went after him for the Nazi jokes. I don't think he should have apologized, but a lot of people did. A lot of people thought, like, hey, that was in bad taste. I'd prefer if you apologized, and he did. But he does not bow down, I think, what is different. That I've noticed that he'll apologize, and then if people try to exploit that, which the media have done that. He's apologized, and then people try to drag him through the dirt and say, that wasn't good enough, you need to apologize more, atone for your sins. And at that point, he's just like, okay, screw you. So I think that's an interesting meeting in the middle, where he has apologized once, and anyone that's not a jerk is like, okay, that's good enough for me. He apologized. Good. And it's not even that he's made an apology and that's it. It's more that he's made an apology. He's taken steps to correct himself. Like, I guess he doesn't do, like, the Nazi jokes anymore. He doesn't do the World War II jokes anymore, because for that, like, that was part of his apology, that he'd said he wouldn't do it anymore. But then after that, it's like, no, like, I apologized, I fixed it. The end. If you don't like it, too bad, screw you. is what seems to happen, which I find very interesting. Something that tends to lean to his power. Like, he's at that nice meet in the middle where whether he's aware of it or not, I think it works to his favor, because he's pleased the people that wanted an apology, but pleased the people that didn't want him to back down. So he did a nice, like, meet in the middle, which I think gives him even more power. And the big thing is he's a comedian. I know, like, a lot of these are related because I'm expanding when I talk about the earlier points, but I've already touched on this. He does not do politics. He's apolitical. He does comedy. He does comedy. So for that reason, people are watching him for his comedy because he can make them laugh and not because he's going to talk about political philosophy or his opinions on stuff. It's all for the jokes. It's all for the mockery, and the mockery works to his favor because if you're a comedian, like the one thing you have in your favor is that if anyone tries to go after you, if you're good enough, you can make them look like an idiot. You can just say, like, look at this moron. You can make them look stupid. And mockery is how you beat someone. You can, like, if someone has a problem with you, you can either come up with 3,000 reasons as to why they're wrong, and sure, like I guess in a factual basis, you would have won. But unfortunately, what really does appeal to people, instead of just giving them the facts, is something they can associate with, something that makes them laugh, like charisma, that kind of thing. And he's got the mockery down. He's got the comedy aspect down. So it seems that whenever someone tries to touch him and write a hit piece on him, he'll apologize. And then if they pursue further, if they go out or if they go nuts, he'll mock. He'll mock them. And on top of that, I think the fact that he was apolitical and that he had nothing to do with politics means that every time they attack him, he's becoming more political. Not that he's going to go into politics. Not that I don't even want him to go into politics. And I don't think anyone should want him to go into politics. But I think he's waking up to it. Like, he is realizing that, okay, the people that are attacked, like, he's thinking, I know I'm a good person, therefore anyone that attacks me and, like, really goes after me, not in terms of criticism, but in terms of, like, makes up stuff completely, like stuff that came out of nowhere. He's aware that those people must be bad, and they are. I'm pretty sure they're bad. And for that reason, it is kind of every time they go after, every time a hit piece is written on him, he's a bit more in opposition to them. And that, I think that becomes very clear. And that means his fans are in greater opposition to, like, media outlets that view him as an enemy. And for that reason, it's one thing, again, if you were to take down Alex Jones, well, Alex Jones talks about politics, he talks about news, he talks about conspiracies and stuff, and that makes him very unpopular, whereas PewDiePie seems to be pretty much universally respected, because he's a very nice guy, and he can make a person laugh. And for that reason, that makes him untouchable. And again, it's all jokes. Like, the media does use that a lot as like, oh, someone's making a joke. Well, they're using the joke to hide their actual bigotry. Instead of putting out propaganda, they mask it under jokes so the propaganda doesn't seem so obvious. And that's just like, you just don't understand jokes. But the last thing is, he's one dude. Like, he's one guy. So one guy got to #1 on YouTube. I guess he might have an editor now. I'm not sure. He might have more people, like, on a team that helps him do stuff. But it's not like he's part of It's not like he's T-Series. He's not a corporation. He's not a company. He's just some dude in front of a camera that may or may not have someone do the editing. But besides that, it's pretty much him. And that's what also works to his benefit, to the fact, like, Patreon, for example. Patreon is very unpopular now because they come across as a very faceless corporation. So when they take a stand, when they take a political stance and ban someone, I think when they were banning people, I think those were, like, when they banned Sargon, that was obviously completely unfounded. It was not a violation of he did not violate the terms of service. They had... Like, it's obviously corrupt. It's political based, or it's ideologically based. It's not being fair. And I think the fact that, like, when it comes to Patreon, it's something that people have a good customer experience with. Patreon is the best thing they're gonna get in terms of loyalty. Like, someone may be like, I've used Patreon in the past, and that's it. Whereas if you're one dude like PewDiePie and not a corporation, you're gonna build a much better connection with your viewers, and for that reason, the viewers will be much more loyal. They'll see you as a person with a personality and not just a faceless corporation. So that works majorly to his benefit. And I already addressed that there, loyalty and fan connection. So hopefully this made sense. The whole point was really to say that this is why he's kind of untouchable, and this is why so many people are going after him at the moment, which, honestly, I assume he doesn't want people to go after him, but I don't mind when people go after him because it always works to their negative. They always tend to lose. If you can't really go after him without looking unhinged because he seems to be such a nice dude. And seems means, like, as far as I know, he's a nice dude. he hasn't seemed to have done anything wrong. And then whenever he does something that some people don't like, he apologizes for it. So I think that seems to be the biggest reason that he is so important, like more important than a lot of these political figures. Because again, like even though you might be, if you're a political figure that spends 4 hours a day or 3 hours a day or on the air talking about stuff, or maybe you're someone that works 16 hours a day doing research, writing papers, putting out information, that's all valuable stuff. But I still, you don't have the strength or power that this guy does. I think for the main reason that even though he doesn't talk politics much, he's got that grasp. When he does the comedy stuff, which appeals to people and people like, and then when people actually go after him, there's much less that people can go after him with. So when they do, it's like, well, you're like it's just so there's just no way to make him look bad, honestly. And then you have things, I mean, you have this with all kinds of people, with Milo and Shapiro, but this was something especially interesting with PewDiePie, where some student recorded a teacher saying this. This is something that you just really have to listen to because it looks like the kid hid his phone under his desk or something. But you'll have teachers saying this kind of thing about the dude. See if the video actually plays. Yes, good.
And by every time you retweet one of these things or every time you promote this idea, you are promoting ignorance, racism, genocide, anti-Semitism. These are all things that you are putting forward when you are doing anything that promotes PewDiePie. So be careful about this. If something were to happen, if PewDiePie were to be sued for this, you could be complicit. If you retweet it, they could make you pay a fine as well, because you have officially published anti-Semitic things. So if you are republishing this stuff, you could get in trouble for it. Be very aware that that is a real thing.
So that happened. So you have unhinged teachers. I think, was that even in the title? I can't click on the title now. But yeah, people actually going nuts like that. Actual teachers going nuts about him, like promoting genocide and all that stuff. And I think that's another thing that really lends to his power, because if you're talking about Milo, for example, Milo is always the best example, because you can go back to Milo and you can take a few quotes out of context, and that looks pretty bad. Like you take a few quotes out of, or even in context, some quotes can look pretty dang bad. But when it comes to PewDiePie, it's like it's all jokes, and even his jokes aren't like radical. Even his jokes, they're all tame stuff. That it's stuff that seems so outrageous, which is why he has that power. And I think now that he's aware that the media can't be trusted, means that they either have to take him down, or they have to or they just have to deal with him. They just have to suffer under him, because like he's the one dude that can't be controlled. And I just think that that's a super important thing that many people are overlooking. It's just the fact that he is not in politics means he is such an influential person when it comes to the media bias and all that. Like the fact that he is not political means that people have not formed that political connection. People aren't judging him by his politics. They're judging him by his personality, which works to his advantage. But I just find this all interesting. And there was one other thing I wanted to point. The fact that he's apolitical, I did cover that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll wrap it up here. Like the video if you enjoyed. This is a video that I pre-recorded like a week earlier. So if you haven't noticed, my channel's been pretty much recording all like non-time sensitive stuff, because I've been gone from Christmas to New Year's, or at least I'm away from my recording equipment, so I can't record stuff. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments section. If you agree, disagree, like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. Let me know the format's rather interesting. Without I don't have a green screen, but it's a blue screen acting as a green screen. But yeah, I just think this is very interesting stuff. And if you haven't already, subscribe to PewDiePie. And if you are unsubscribed from or if you are subscribed to T-Series, please unsubscribe. And while you're at it, maybe hit the subscription button below if you enjoyed this. And thanks for watching.